Hi friends, welcome back. Today we're talking about real numbers, but we're talking about them in irrational and rational, and the sum and the product, and it can get a little confusing. So before we get into that, what I want to do is touch base on rational and irrational numbers. Now, when we talk about real numbers, so now in Algebra 1, you're going to be talking about real numbers. You may be thinking to yourself, well, are there non-real numbers? And yes, when you get to Algebra 2, I can't wait to share those with you. Okay, but for rational numbers, the root word of rational is ratio. And remember, a ratio is just a fraction. So a rational number is a number that can be written as a fraction. An irrational number is one that cannot be written as a fraction. And I'm going to tell you, that means it's going to be like a decimal that repeats, that never ends. And as soon as I said that, you may have thought of the most famous one, which is pi. Pi is a decimal. I'm going to use a different color here so that we've got this because I'm very enthusiastic about these. So why don't we use some purple? Pi is an irrational number because it cannot be written as a fraction, aka a ratio. Other really common ones right now in Algebra 1 are non-perfect square roots. So like the square root of 7 is not a perfect square root. The square root of 9, however, is 3, so that would be rational. Other things that are rational would be all of our fractions, because a fraction just means, a ratio just means a fraction here. Decimals that repeat, those can be written as fractions as a ratio. Decimals that end, like 0.25, that would be another one. Negative 1.7, those would all be rational numbers. Now, some rational numbers can be qualified as integers or whole numbers or counting numbers. Natural and counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, things we use to count. Some people call them natural, some people call them counting, so that's why I specify in both those. The next one are whole numbers. Now, whole numbers just means 0 and all of those natural and counting numbers we just talked about. Integers are whole numbers, that's 0, and the natural numbers and their opposites, meaning they're negatives. So if we have like a negative 5, that would be an integer. Negative 5.2 would not be an integer, it would just be a rational number because there's a decimal involved. So for right now, what you really need to know are your most common irrational numbers are going to be pi and the square root of 7. Another common one is e, which you probably won't get into until Algebra 2, but it's a naturally occurring number. It's like 2 point and it goes on forever just like pi. And it doesn't repeat